Hi everyone, I'm Neha and I lead a team of product managers at Amazon, and I'm super excited to be here and talk to you about product management. So what's the topic today? So today I'm going to talk about differences between B2B and B2C product management, and essentially it just boils down to who your user is. Is your user a business or is it a customer or a consumer, right? And based on who your customer is, who your user is, the way you apply the product management principle changes just a little bit, right? So today we'll walk through, what it means and, what are the different, ways of, managing your product once you're in B2C versus B2C. And yeah, we'll go from there. And because we have such a, cozy group of audience, feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions or you don't understand something I'm saying. So let's start. So I'll start off by telling you a bit about myself. So all my life, I've been a product manager. I started my journey in Microsoft, where I worked in Office, Excel, and Access services. And then I worked in Office Mobile, which are the Office apps like Word app or OneNote app you might have on your phone devices. And then, as you know, Office is a product that's used by enterprises, small and medium businesses, education users, and also consumers, right? But I always characterize this as a B2B product because you're not really using this for our personal lives. You're not writing Word documents to our moms and sending them over email as attachments, right? So that was kind of my first foray, jumping right into kind of a B2B product, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Because I wanted to kind of get more experience into a B2C product, I thought, what's better than games? Games are as consumer as they get, right? Because all you need to do is create entertainment product for them. So I worked in Zynga, which is a gaming company. And for those of you who don't know what Zynga is, if anybody remembers those Farmville notifications on Facebook, that's the company that makes it. But I didn't work on that, so don't hate on me. I worked on different games on mobile. I worked on Scramble with Friends, which is like a Scrabble game, Running with Friends, and a Fairy Tale Twist game, which is more like Candy Crush, which is like you're matching tiles and so on, right? And then here, my audience was very consumer. These are casual gamers, and you won't believe it. It's actually mostly women for from 20 to 40 age group, and a very different audience segment. So it was a lot of fun going from a very enterprise product to a really, really consumer-facing product, and a lot of good learning experience for me as well. The next one was Expedia, and you all know Expedia. You can book travel. I worked on the hotel-facing software side of Expedia, and so again, I was back into B2B, working for and making software for hotels to use, and so that they can create their promotions, pricing, and basically present themselves on the Expedia website. And currently, I'm in Amazon. I started off my journey in Amazon working on a 3P marketplace, which is, again, B2B, sellers who want to come and sell their goods on Amazon. And then about 7 months ago, I made a move to Alexa team, and I work on Alexa on mobile devices. And back to being in consumer foray, so basically a lot of switching back and forth. So I feel because of all this back and forth, I have seen so much difference in the way product management works for B2B and B2C customers. So, and I want to share that with all of you. Before we dive in, I'll tell you a little bit story about myself. A lot of people ask me, how did you get into product management? And the funny thing is, I actually got into product management quite accidentally. So I used to live in Singapore, and that's where I finished my undergrad in computer engineering and business. And I thought yeah, why not apply to Microsoft? Seems like a pretty good choice. And then I talked to a few people. They're like, well, product managers, I don't think you should apply for that because it's for people who have MBAs or who have advanced degrees or who have a lot of industry experience. I was like, makes sense. Maybe I'll just apply for a developer position, right? So I can code. That's one thing I know. And I went into Microsoft. I had this amazing interview, and midway through the interview was like, do you know about this position called product management? I was like, yeah. Do you want to apply for that? Because I think you might be more suitable for that. I was like, yeah, why not? Big deal. Yeah, why not? Try it out. What's there to lose? And that's literally how I landed my job in PM. So I think the takeaway here is, don't let anybody ever tell you that you need MBAs or you can't be a fresh grad, or you need industry experience to be a product manager. I think all you need to demonstrate is that you can think for the customer, and you can actually solve problems, and you have design thinking, right? So anyway, wanted to kind of share this story before we jump further. So, all right, so let's dive in. So I know the definition is right here, but how many people already knew what is a B2B product? Wow, that's pretty awesome. All right. So a B2B product, I'll talk mainly in software sense because that's where my experience is basically a software service that is typically sold to a business, right? And to put that into consumer, customer sense, basically solves a discrete business problem as opposed to personal problem or a need or want for a consumer that you can use in your everyday life. And very typically, these tend to be into how do you improve business productivity, cut cost, improve communication, analytics, the kind of things that drive business ROI. So a bunch of examples here. Slack is a great example. Salesforce that allows marketers to build products on their platform. Twilio, allows businesses to integrate SMS, messaging, etc. with them. AWS, storage for businesses. And Uber for drivers. So that's the interesting part about marketplaces who have both B2B and B2C side. For driver, they're making their living out of it, right? And they're solving that problem for the driver customers. B2C are the easiest products to think about, right? Because they help consumers solve a personal need or a want. And very typically, and I say want, not just a need, because sometimes we have these wants, which is we're not willing to pay for, we are not looking for ROI. It's just something nice to have, and we're willing to use it because it's free, right? So a lot of time these, tend to be in the verticals of social, entertainment, health and fitness. And some of the examples you're already familiar with, like Instagram, Tinder, Spotify, Netflix, WhatsApp. So let's talk about some of the key differences here, right? How are they different from each other? And when you're a product manager in each one of these segments, how do you think about, for example, your users and their role? One of the biggest difference that I noticed when I was working in Expedia and even Microsoft in a B2B product, I realized the key difference is your user is actually not the one that buys the software, right? Especially true for Microsoft Office. Your IT administrators, CTOs are making a decision to buy, Office version 2013 or what have you for the entire company. But the users are those information workers who are working at their desks, sending emails, crafting Word documents, writing Excel sheets. So I think that is a very key difference that you have to think about, that while somebody is using your product, somebody else makes a decision of buying, right? The other thing that I learned in Expedia is that, when you have a B2B product in your hand, you have to learn and think about roles within the organization. It's very easy to say, yeah, MGM is going to use this product, right? But it's not just MGM. There's a person who checks, the customer in when they arrive at the hotel. There's a person who runs sales and marketing. There's a person who does pricing decision. So how does, your product help these people with their daily jobs, right? So for example, one of the software I created for them was they can run a promotion that gives users, buyers, a free, let's say, a spa package in addition to their hotel. So you have to think about how will, a receptionist, think about that. How will she know to give this benefit to the customer? How will the salesperson actually know and monitor the impact on their sales through it? How will the pricing person know that how it's impacting their prices, right, compared to their cost and so on? So you have to think about not just as a whole organization, but who are the people within that. And lastly, a lot of these B2B products actually have an IT department. Not all of them, because some of them could be individual small businesses which may not have an IT department. But that's actually a really good thing to have, because you sometimes don't have to make these products simple to deploy. Right? You can make them complex, individual user is not going to go deploy Exchange product, but because there's an IT person, they will take care of it, and they have the expertise. So this becomes more apparent when you compare this to B2C products, right? So your buyer is the user. The person who's making the buy decision is actually going to use it, right? So it's for their own personal use. And secondly, there are no roles, your user is a user, unless, some products are family products, so you have to have different roles, okay, kids cannot buy, anything from Amazon because they're not authorized or they have authorization limit of X. And lastly, because there's no IT department who's going to help them, deploy all these different things, you can't make your August lock or, Ring difficult for people to set up. Like these are your very average user. You have to think a next level about the usability of these things and make it super, super simple for them. This is my favorite part about B2B products. Usually, B2B product, like users, they know what they want. They can come and tell you like, no, actually, I really need something that, makes it very easy for me to send this email to 100 people, right, as a marketer, right? So while you need a lot of industry knowledge, customers really know what pain points they have, and they can very easily articulate them to you, right? And it's also very easy to reach them, right? So when I was, for example, working in Expedia, I had this relationship with a bunch of like people from all these hotels. And if I had a product idea, I can actually call them up like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Do you think this is possible? And it's in their best interest to, like answer me. And like, they were all too happy to like talk to me and like, yeah, like I definitely want to tell you more about this. So that was super easy. So that's why I feel like B2B product management in some ways is kind of easy. Your customers know what they want. They're accessible to you all the time. And, so I actually found that process to be much, much easier. Compared to B2C customers, a lot of time they don't even know what they want. In fact, a lot of times, you think about products, you have to think on their behalf to know what their unmet needs are before you can define, what they. For example, I work in Alexa. I'm sure nobody was thinking like, yeah, I have an unmet need for, a smart speaker in my house, right? And I think this is where you kind of have to analyze deeper into like, what is the data, what are the trends, and what is their actual behavior, right? To kind of identify the unmet need and test, and find the one product that works for them. And so that way, I think B2C products are kind of different. But also, there's one more thing. Because you are also the user of these products, it's very easy for you to kind of relate to them. So when I was, working in Expedia, like, there's no way I can like think of myself as a hotel owner. It's very hard for me. That mentality just doesn't come very easily, right? Or like having to think, being in their shoes. But when you're like using Alexa, every day I have a feature idea, right? Or when I'm using like, games, I'm like, yeah, this feature will be cool if I can see leaderboards. That would be so cool, right? So in some ways, they both have their pros and cons in terms of understanding your customer needs. Go to market. And so that's another one, which is very different, right? In B2B products, you have long sales cycles. You have a lot of relationship building. You have a whole sales team that's dedicated to help you, which is super awesome because as a product manager, you have a salesperson who is talking to customers, bringing you feedback, selling. And, but then also at the same time, when I was talking to, for example, Kellogg when I was in Microsoft, they're like, yeah, we only upgrade like every 3 years, and like, their cycles are very long. Compared to Zynga, I was releasing product 2 times a week. I'm like deploying, people are using new features, they're getting it like as soon as possible, right? So that is sort of the difference also. So in a way, like if you kind of like slower pace, and you want like, kind of more work-life balance, like very not constantly on the go, B2B actually can be a really good fit for you. And on the other hand, B2C is more marketing focused, but the good thing is you can launch anytime. It actually gives you a lot of instant gratification and energy. Like, oh yeah, I launched this on Tuesday, and Monday I was like, wow, yeah, I see like engagement going 10% up. Like that's amazing. So you get a lot of gratification, which is very hard to get like B2B. Like you have to like wait for a long time. And so monetization model. The best part about B2B products is people are willing to pay you for it, right? Because there's an ROI, they're actually generating business value, creating more value, so they can actually, they don't mind paying for it. And there are a lot of like, so your monetization path is super clear. If you're in a startup or like you're starting your own company or you're building features or like new product lines within your organization, the monetization path is super clear. You can tell like, okay, this is how it's gonna bring money in. And then a typical, way to monetize will be like licensing, subscription, and charging for support, right? In B2C products, you have to convince customers to pay, right? For example, I was in Zynga, right? And we made these games, and you have this freemium model, like, anybody can pay for free, but you have to pay for these power-ups or in-game, merchandise. And then you have to make it like that compelling for them that they actually have so much fun after using this, right? So how do you build that, experience that they really want to pay for it because they can choose not to? They can literally go to another game and play a similar game, right? So I think that is actually a really big challenge when it comes to consumer products. So monetization can be tricky, and that's a lot of times the kind of models you see there's like businesses don't charge, well, product companies don't charge customers. What they end up doing is they support with ads, or they do like freemium models, or they charge the business side of it so that customers can enjoy this for free. Like Google does that with like Google Docs are free, but for organizations they charge. All right, so we went through a lot of differences between the two paradigms. So how do you navigate that as a product manager? So first of all, even though I walked you through differences, they're actually not very different, right? Because if you look at the core product management process, which is like you learn customers' unmet needs or needs, and then you design and validate a solution that actually solves those needs. Then you work with engineering to build a product that does what you designed, and then launching and measuring and iterating, right? So at the very core of it, this doesn't change. You still have to do that. You might be iterating at a different pace depending on the kind of product you have, or you might spend more time. You might have different ways of validating your product, right? You can do A/B testing in B2Cs. You can't do that a lot of times with the B2Bs, right? So you might have different methods of doing that, but at the underlying fundamental level, you're still doing the exact same things. And a lot of times I get questions asked like, hey, how do you jump around from like one industry to another industry, like from gaming to like, travel to like e-commerce, and doing like B2C to B2B? This is what I tell them. Like in the end, the core doesn't change. You just apply it very differently, use different tools. And one of the, I think, biggest kind of myths about B2B is like people think it's boring, right? Who wants to work in Salesforce? Yeah, I want to work on like, EC2, this particular product in AWS, and like none of your friends understand it. Your mom is like, what did you just say? Oh yeah, my son works in Amazon, right? So they just like simply, like nobody understands it. You don't feel very proud telling people because no one really gets it. But on the other hand, B2B is actually more successful than B2C in general. So if you look at the startups and how many of them close down, there are more B2C startups that end up being not successful as compared to businesses that are focused on B2B. Now, my personal hypothesis is because there's a very clear monetization path in selling to businesses and creating products for businesses. And also, if you look at the trends in startup land, you'll notice that B2B startups are actually getting way more funding. They're exiting more, and they're getting bigger rounds in fundings, and so on. And I think one of my favorite things about this, especially if you work in a marketplace situation where you both have a business side to it and a customer side to it, if you work on the business side, which is like I was in Expedia working in the hotel facing, you actually get a really good end-to-end understanding of it. Because if you're just on the consumer side, you're like, yeah, we are optimizing this hotel search page where you can buy and you can display this information, you can check out. But if you're on the behind the scenes, you're building this like pricing product for hotels, for example, you know exactly how it goes from the very beginning to how the customer purchases it, and the cycle repeats. So I actually really enjoyed knowing like the end-to-end industry, like where the optimizations can happen in the product, or the industry in general. So I really had a lot of fun time there. So here's my last slide, which is my recommendation to anybody is try both, especially if you're going to be in product management for long haul. I think it's very important to develop like a well-rounded product management experience. Try different industries, try different kind of products, and I think it just makes you better, because sometimes you can apply principles that you learn from one place into another. Sometimes you can bring like cross knowledge. And even the tools, for example, in B2B, we are using these kind of tools to do data analytics. Actually, it worked really well for B2C as well. So you can cross-pollinate and bring more freshness to your thinking as a product manager. So don't have to become like jack of all trades, but definitely specialize in something that you really like. But like the more you know, the more well-rounded you are, and I think that also makes you more attractive to people when they're hiring and things like that.